Hey everybody, Kate Delaney. I am so thrilled to be with you today because we're going to talk about raving fans and how you can create a base of raving fans. I mean, if you've got books, you want to move books. You are passionate about whatever it is that you talk about, and you want to be able to get more people to know you, to love your work, to spread the word, because that's the very big important part about books. Because you want to have sales, you want to have influence, and how do you get that? And you get that by creating raving fans. I want to tell you, as we move along here, if you have any questions along the way, there is wonderful chat that I can certainly see, and I can absolutely answer those as we move along. So when in creating raving fans, one of the things that you want to utilize is your own world. And I think too often we look at, and I'm going to talk about social media, and I'm going to talk about media. I'm going to talk about earned, rented, and owned media. But you also need to remember the world around you. And when I say the world around you, I mean your own community, your family, your friends, the people that you've worked with in the past, the people you went to school with. One of the things that I suggest to everybody, and it doesn't matter if you're 25, it doesn't matter if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, however old you are, you definitely have moved through this planet and probably touched lots and lots of different lives, people that you've lost touch with. Certainly during the pandemic, we've seen that more people have connected with people that they lost touch with. So by reaching out to people in your past, you sprinkle the word about what you're doing. The book that you just released, the book that you released 5 years ago, the one you're working on now, the trilogy you're working on, the autobiography that's impactful, the horror story or horror genre, the stories that you tell in that genre, the crime novel that you've written, the poetry that you've written, the children's book that you've written, because you've got those people in your past that you probably haven't touched in a very long time. So what I suggest to people is you take a pad just like this one. It's that easy, right? And you just write down every name, every place you've been that you can think of. This is something that I didn't do, and I realized at one point when I launched my very first book, which was self-published, and even though I had a bit of a platform, obviously, with radio, I still needed to go beyond that. So I sat down, I took out my paper, even though, of course, we all have cell phones. You can do it electronically too. They have notes there, and you could do it that way. But I think there's something about the physical and writing it that makes you think about people in your past. And I went through, because I've lived all over the country in many different states, and I went to a university that was far from where I grew up, and I started to write down all the clubs, all the people I knew from school that I could remember, all the different organizations that I even spoke for, all the different radio and television stations that I worked at, and people that I knew. And I started to make this long list. And by the time, and I thought, it's only going to be a handful of people. By the time that I was done, I had close to 800 people. Now, again, I worked a lot of different places, the university, school, growing up, elementary school, teachers. So, I mean, I really dug deep, and that paid off for me. By the time I was done, I had all those names, and I figured out a way to reach out to some of them, to tell them, hey, I know we haven't talked in a long time. Remember the fun things that we used to do in elementary school? Remember Mr. Mascola, for example? Do you know where he is? And by doing that, I really, really spread the word about and hold on a second, I got to get a drink of water here. That's when you drink too much coffee. I really spread the word about my books and what was happening with my books. It's going to come back, that voice. Excuse me. And I really spread the word about my books. And that in turn sold more of my books because I had that long list of people who I could then reach out to. And I put together an email and I put links to my books. And these are people that supported me in the past. And then they supported me now that they knew where I was and what I was doing. So I challenge you. It's one of the key things that you take away from this keynote is to write that list of people that you know from your past, because you never know how many of those raving fans you have. Raving fans. And this is what I would do when I have speeches. I would hand out to people who made their raving fans list, and I get them to wave these towels. You never know how many raving fans that you have until you reach out to people that have touched your life in some way, whether it's through travel, whether it's through, like I said, elementary school, college, whether it's through jobs, whatever it is. Make that list, because that list will pay off for you in a very big way. The thing that you also want to do, and this is why it differentiates you, is you don't want to be the same as everybody else, and you're probably not. You're unique. Everybody's unique in some way. Your work is unique in some way. When you list your book on Amazon, you do a synopsis of that book. Why is your book different? Why should I read your children's book or buy it for a friend? Why should I read your poetry book? Why should I read your autobiography? Why should I read your history book? Why should I read whatever novel you've created? Why should I read your how-to book? What is it that differentiates you? And that's another thing that you have to really dig deep on to get raving fans. You have to know exactly what your wow is. What makes you unique and different? Why is your book different from the rest of the books that are out there on the shelves that may have a similar, be in a similar genre? There's lots of poetry books, but not all of them are good. There's lots of poetry books that don't address the same thing that you address. There's lots of books written on World War II. There's lots of books written, children's books that are written about going to school on the first day, etc. So you get my drift. You got to really think and dig deeper than you have before. You might say, well, that's easy, Kate. I know why I know why my book's different. Drill really deep and know that. Make that something that's so in the back of your head that when somebody says to you, well, what's your book about? You're not fumbling around and giving us 15 sentences of what it's about. You want it to be succinct. You want it to be able to just leave your lips easily. What's your book about? Why is this book unique? Why are you different? I'm going to take you to a place that I love, that I had a chance to go to a couple of years ago in Ireland. It's on the Wild Atlantic Way in Ireland. If some of you are out there, you may know it, you may not, but put it on your bucket list if you ever go there. And I went to the largest sheep farm in Ireland. Glen Keel is the name of it. And it made me, Glen Keenan, it made me think of why we don't want to be like these sheep. So really kind of burn this in your brain. Mariana is going to take us there right now for a second.
Come by, 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 no bite, come by, come by, come by, sit, away, 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 sit, away, sit, walk on.
All right, so see, the purpose of showing you that is you saw the sheep. The dog was the leader. The dog herded the sheep. You don't need to be herded. You need to be different. You need to be the sheep. You need to be the one that strays away from the pack. You don't want to be part of that group. You need to have that differentiation that makes such a big difference. So again, another challenge and a thing to take away from this is you make that big list of all the people you can reach out to, and you tell them about your book. Hey, will you spread the word with the rest of the gang? Will you let the alumni know that I've written this book? I'm so proud of it, blah, blah, blah. Whatever you might specifically write in, and let's say, an email that you reach out to people with. You want to do that because that's the very basic, what I call low-hanging fruit. People in your world that have been there in the past that you've completely lost touch with, or maybe people that are still in your world, but you haven't even told them that you have a series of books or you've written a book or any of that. Let them know, because you start there. Then the other thing is, make sure when you let them know that you know what your proposition is, what your wow is, your unique selling proposition, or what I again call the wow, the who or the what. And a who is usually somebody who could be famous for something they've done. And I'll give you the example of myself. When people reach out to me, or when people look at my book, a lot of the things that come back to me include the fact that, wow, you interviewed over 16,000 people and counting. And that's right. I've interviewed 16,000 people. That's a very big number. To get into the sports world, it was 500 rejections before I crashed that glass ceiling and finally got a gig when I wanted to do sports on the side, and then do it for a full career. Now I do a wide open show that I've done for 15 years. But the point of telling you about me is that's my wow, is the numbers. And I've written 5 books. I'm on a novel that I'm writing right now. Fingers crossed, right? It's been coming for 10 years. But in doing that, I then looked at, I've got to put that list together. So I'm going back to that again. And I had to know what my wow was. What is my selling proposition? There are lots of people that, I'm going to show it to you. There are lots of people that do self-improvement or getting what you want. In this book, Deal Your Own Destiny, is increase your odds, win big, and become extraordinary. So what sets this book apart from the others? It's the interviews. It's the people that I've learned from, famous people, Richard Branson, famous Hall of Fame athletes, etc. Whoever that I cross paths with. So it's the wisdom that I learned from them and the things that I know that I impart. But that differentiates me from other people that are in that space, that are selling books that are about empowerment or improvement or setting goals, and how do you reach your goal, and how do you have daily habits and consistency, and all of that. So think about that, really drill down. Don't be like the sheep that I just showed you. Pretty as that was, and amazing as it was, the point is to emphasize to you again that you have to have something that's different. What is it that's different about you? And I guarantee that you have it. And you probably work with the publishers on that too. Hang on a second here. It's a day of a dry throat. So now when we move on to media, on media side, it's earned, rented, and owned media. So I'm going to tell you about all 3, because that's another way to create those raving fans. And how do you do that? Well, first you have to know the difference between all 3. Earned media means that you've done so well on your wow that people know who you are, that people consider you an expert, that they reach out to you to talk about the pandemic because you're a doctor, or they reach out to you and you've written a book that has to do with something maybe similar, but could be about anything. They reach out to you for your expertise, in other words, in whatever field it is. And that earned media is because you've gotten out there, because your book has made some noise, because somebody told somebody about your book and your expertise. So that's media reaching out to you, finding you. And it's a wonderful thing when that happens, because that's stuff that you can put on your website, etc., and use that to, again, start to grow those raving fans. More people will click on the interviews, the radio interviews, the television interviews, the newspaper interviews, because we still have newspapers that are just digital now. I talked about that a little bit the other day, that yes, you go to NewYorkTimes.com or WallStreetJournal.com or Bloomberg.com or whatever the paper might be, The Sun, the Guardian, etc. And there are ways to find those, by the way. If you don't know some of the periodicals that you could reach out to, or some of the people that you could reach out to, I'll tell you about a couple of different resources. One of them, because it's a website that links a lot of different newspapers around the country, in the US and around the world. If you go to drudge.com, it'll be twofold, and I'll tell you why in a second. But it'll list those links where you can click on, like the New York newspapers, the San Francisco papers, the Chicago papers, the papers in England, the papers in other parts of the world, and then you'll be able to see what they're talking about. You'll be able to see what who are some of the journalists or people that you could even reach out to. Because the other thing is, you have earned, rented, and owned media. So in getting that earned media, part of that, what comes into play is letting people know that you're around, whether it's through Twitter in tracking down some of these journalists and linking your book and say, hey, I talk about I talk about the infestation of cicadas in the springtime, and what that noise is about, etc. Whatever it might be. I'm making this up, but just stories that are out there that you can link yourself to, and that's called newsjacking. I realize as we move along here, I'm kind of fire hosing you with things. So I've added a resource. If you go to my booth and you click on my booth, you'll see that there's a resource there. I've decided that today, and I guess for the rest of the festival, I'm going to give away a copy of my tip book. So this is on Amazon, and in the tip book, a lot of what I'm talking about you'll be able to find there. So if you're trying to scribble down notes, because I'm giving you that fire hose approach, don't worry about it, because all of this is in there. Go to the resource, download the book that way. If you, again, in this earned media space, and to get people to know who you are, go to drudge.com. So I've got my other, I'll hold it up for you. I've got my other computer here. I'm going to just do it and demonstrate it for you. So if I'm looking at my computer, and today I go to that site, and there's the Daily Mail, there's the Evening Standard, there's links for all this, the Guardian, the Independent, the Sun, the New York Times, New York Post. And what I want to do is, if you create this habit daily where you do this, you can see what people are talking about. So if I click on, for example, the Post, then I can look at this, and I can see what's on the front pages and see what people are talking about. And if I've written something, or I'm an expert in something that the media has jumped on that I could add to the conversation, I could reach out to a journalist. I can do that easily by going and looking and seeing what people are writing and who the people are. I can do that with television too. I can do that with radio as well. So how about this? I'll give you a couple of the things that are here. New York City taxi. This is one of the stories. New York City taxi commissions to stop testing cabbies for marijuana. Marijuana is a big subject. You may talk about just marijuana in general. You might talk about the effects of it, etc. Or is it too big brothery, and why are they not doing that? So it's deregulation. You could have something that's relatable to that, and that could get you right there in that big news story and get you that coverage, because that's a very, very big story. There may be some aspect of what you do that's relatable, to that. I've got a question here from the audience. Rejections. How do we deal with that when we attract raving fans? How do we deal with rejection? Well, here's what I say about rejection. I talk about it in my books. You're going to have rejection. The more success that you have, there is going to be people out there that don't like to see you having success. So you have to build up your mindset that it's not about them, it's about you. And you have to have that acceptance of, I'm fearless and I can move forward and I'm out there. And if I get rejections, I've gotten, I said it, I think, but the number that was my wow. I was rejected 500 times before I got that first break in sports. And if I had let that stop me, I never would have flown with the Dallas Cowboys. I would have never gone to other places in the world where I went to Grenada, I went to Ireland and saw some amazing rugby matches, etc., and did live shows from there. If I let myself get rejection after rejection after rejection, and I let it push me out of the game, I never would have been able to had the front row seat that I had and experience the things that I got to experience. So with rejection, I think there's a couple of things. I think you dig again really deep and you do some of that mind work every day. I'll just tell you my process, and I talk about it in the book, and I think it's so important. Every day to center myself, I meditate for 20 minutes and I focus on all the positive things around me, and I have big goals and I write those goals down, and I still have big goals. I think you have to challenge yourself to not give up on those, and I still face lots and lots of rejection. So in the road to attracting raving fans, you're going to get rejected. If you do the thing that I suggested, for example, and you send out emails, excuse me, you send out emails to all these different people that you haven't talked to in a long time, some of them you won't hear from, and you can't take it personally. You just keep moving forward. You look at all the other people that will probably reach back to you, and what a tremendous thing that is. And for, let's say, media that you reach out to, let's say in selling your book, people that you're reaching out to, maybe even literary agents, you're gonna face rejection. I'm sure most likely all of us face rejection at some point in our life. So keep the raving fans. That's the other part of this. Because of the question, I'll veer to this for a second, and I talk about this heavily in my book. It doesn't matter if it's one person, two people, three people, four people, five people. It's so important in your life to have those raving fans, those people, whether it's a relative, friends, a former boss. I have that. I have a former mentor boss who's like that, that they think you, the expression is hung the moon. They are your fan. They want to hear about what's happening in your world. They are right there for you, because you're going to run into those people that are going to tell you can't do it. Why are you doing a book again? Why are you doing this? No one will ever buy that. Nobody ever wants to hear about that. You're absolutely going to run into those people. And it's something, no matter what culture you come from, where you live, it's something that as humans we deal with. So in attracting raving fans, when you have those raving fans, whether they're people you know or whether they're people you don't know personally, those are the people that you want to keep close. Those are the people that you pay attention to. That's how you deal with the rejection. And you center yourself by doing some method. It doesn't have to be meditating. It can be meditating. It can be physical exercise. It can be so even I walk the dog. Walking my dog centers me. Whatever it is, to get that garbage out of your head, because every day we face head trash. We have thoughts that, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, this isn't selling. This isn't happening. I can't tell the story. I can't do me. I can't do the novel. I have no time. I've been talking about it for 10 years and finally I've written the outline. Oh, and people tell me it's so hard to sell this book. It's so hard to do this, so hard to do that. So you dump that trash out of your head, empty the trash every day, and think of the reasons why you can accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish. And like I said, I talk about that a lot in my book, and I talk about it in the tip book, which I'm giving you for free. So go and grab that resource, and you'll see I'll have great examples of that, and you can dig deeper on that. All right, so earned, rented, and owned media. I want to talk about rented media because I think this will help many of you. I'm sure, and I know that there were people that were talking about social media and the power of social media. There's some people that I've got a scrolling thing here of what's going on in the media so I can tell you some good story ideas. I'm sure that there are some people that perhaps aren't great at using social media because they think it's intimidating or they can't build up a massive amount of raving fans or people that are paying attention. It's not about numbers. It's about influence. It's about who are the people that are there looking at your social media? Who are the people that are following you? How are you doing that? How are you getting the word out on social media? There's lots of scheduling devices or companies you can go to, like a Hootsuite, and there's people that can put all that together for you. And by the way, again, if you have any questions, use the chat and we'll do that as we go along. So I have this hot off the press from just the other day so that I could give you the latest numbers. And I think this is significant. The rented media is social media or the other platforms you're on that you don't own, like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, any of those, Twitter. So the state of social media by the numbers is this. This is from the Pew Research Center. It's a survey on America's social media use. Older people, so you may have, your audience might be older people. Older people have a love for Facebook. 50% of Americans 65 plus are on Facebook. Maybe your audience, your target audience is older people or people getting older. It's something you talk about with health, etc. Then you want to be on Facebook. You want to find a way to create a Facebook group. It's easy, it's free, and it's a walking billboard for you. And the other thing is, at all ages, especially younger, but all ages, America, this is from the Pew Research Center, America is obsessed with YouTube. And that's a great place to go to look at video clips. I'm on YouTube. You can subscribe to mine. And I'm just building mine because my focus was originally years ago on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn is very, very big for me. So it's important to go to YouTube because there's things that you can do and use on YouTube. The video site towers over all social platforms. They say among US adults, 81% report using YouTube. 81%. I want you to think about if you can get even a tiny percent of that. 81% of adults using YouTube, up 8% year over year. Wow. So think about it. You have a book, and like I'll just use my example. My latest book is the journal, the Girlfriend's Gratitude Journal. So just like you see me here on the screen, I could do a video. You can flip your phone around. Hey, this is Kate Delaney. If you know somebody who really needs to journal, you need to give them a great gift, you want to connect with your girlfriends. Girlfriend's Gratitude Journal is filled with inspirational quotes. It's filled with pages, blank pages that your friends can fill up to daily get rid of that head trash, to make themselves feel better, etc. And it's just a great gift. However I say that. Boom. Now I have a clip, put it on YouTube and link it to the book or whatever. You get my drift. And I could go deeper than that. All of you can do that right now. All of you can do that. So YouTube was the only platform other than Reddit that saw significant growth since 2019. That's huge. Again, 81% using YouTube. For if you wanted to look at comparisons, younger people, 18 to 29 years old, hold the highest percentage of users across Snapchat, 65%, Instagram, 71%, YouTube, 95%, 95%, Twitter, 42%, TikTok, 48%. Wow, wow, wow. 50, and then even 50% of Americans in the 65 plus range also use Facebook, right? That use Facebook, and 49% use YouTube. So YouTube would get you the older and the younger audiences. And again, if you go to, I'll give you another example. If you go to my booth, you'll see the video that I posted, a video that was created about my book. If you have a video about your book, post that on YouTube because it's free space. It's free billboard. Once you get it created, it's worth the money to create that video, to put it out there, because you can keep using that over and over again. You could use that, in fact, to put in your email that you're sending out to all these people that you're reconnecting with, to tell them that I have a book. I'm launching another book. I've written 5 books, whatever it is, because those raving fans are the people that are going to click buy. They're going to go to Amazon. They're going to go to Barnes & Noble. They're going to go wherever your book is sold because they're going to be curious. They're going to want to go and reach out. I saw it with me when I launched my book, and I did that, and I told you the crazy amount of people. I cannot believe how many people bought my book, even took the time, people I hadn't connected with in forever, took the time to take a shot of themselves with a book to tell me that they bought it. So you'll have the same thing happen, even if it's just a couple people, whatever it is, it'll happen. Demographics, quickly, I'll tell you about this, because again, we're talking about the rented platform. Pinterest. It's another good place to put up a billboard. 46% women, just 16% men. So if you're listening to me and you're a woman, or you have an audience that your target audience is women, Pinterest would be a great place to be. Put your book up. Give love to other books that are similar to yours or the same genre. Get yourself known in there. That's a really, really good resource. And you don't have to do it a lot. Instagram is used by 50% of Hispanic Americans, 49% of Black Americans, 35% of white Americans. WhatsApp is used by 40% of Hispanic Americans, 23% of Black Americans, 16% of white Americans. And then if it's a crowd, an educated crowd that you want to reach, LinkedIn is used by 51%, and this is from the Pew Research Center. Again, I said that at the top, and I thought it was worth taking some time to go over this because it's fresh information. LinkedIn is used by 51% of adults with bachelor's or advanced degrees, but by only 10% of those with a high school degree or less. And then there's other platforms that just have not caught on. So you don't have to do all the platforms. You don't have to go crazy. You can just dip your toe in and do it across the board. I got a question from the audience. When do we know when to stop? When is enough enough? So if you're talking about social media, when do we know when to stop? When is enough enough? When you're overwhelmed. If that's specifically the question, I'm not sure I'm addressing that right. When enough is when you're overwhelmed. When it's like you've listened to what I just said, and instead of just slowly, organically growing it, I say this when I speak, patience pays. Remember, you got to go all in, do some of the things I challenged you to do, not in 2 seconds. It may take weeks, it may take months, it might take a full quarter to do some of the things I suggested, but it will pay off for you. I know it will. So go all in, but remember, patience pays. I have that problem. I have lots of opportunity around me. And sometimes where I fall short and where the balance is not there is when I try to do everything at once. So posting too many things and going every single day on every single platform and then doing what you normally would do. Don't do that. Just do it slowly. Put out a blog. If you do a blog, do one a week, easy. Do a short blog, a couple of 100 words, let's say. Maybe it's 300 words, 500 words max. Make it short. People have short attention spans. All right, so that's how you know when enough is when you're just crazed and you're just pumping out content and you're not really narrowing it, because you got to figure out that target audience and your sweet spot, and it'll come back to you. The more you do it, you'll see the people that will respond. So from the audience, what is a successful YouTube video for you? People like, and everybody's different. People like to hear me giving snippets of advice and challenges and free material, things that you can use. You know, my assessment, you can go to dealyourown.destiny.com. People want me to talk about that. How can I deal my own destiny? What do I need to do? That kind of thing. So the how-to videos are very popular. If you are in that space of teaching self-improvement, teaching, it's like Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith, who did a keynote here on this fabulous Festival of Storytellers. I talked to her, and she's got her REST survey that's amazing, and she has a really specific area that she talks about, and that would be a successful video for her. So for you, it might be something different. For me, it is imparting that how to do something. YouTube, if you go to YouTube, test this out and you'll see how to fix a sink, how to be more mindful, how to build a house, how to travel around the world. The how to is popular with people. whatever it is, that's the how-to maybe for you. That's successful for me when I put in a how-to video, or when it's something related to me speaking and people get, which would also be part of what my speaking is about motivation and empowerment and inspiration. So people like to see those videos of me speaking, whether it's virtually or whether it's on a stage somewhere, now that we're going back to more stages. That's what a successful YouTube would be for me. I think for many of you listening, if you put together a really good series of nuggets about your books, again, whatever they are, whether it's poetry, whether it's history, whether it's autobiographical, an autobiography, whether it's a children's book, whether it's something, a novel, a crime novel, a romance novel, whatever genre, you get what I'm saying here. If you could, just like this, you have a background like I have, and you say something about your book, you read a piece of your book and say, hey, I want to tell you about this character and how I developed this character, and blah, 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 and you do things that way, I think you would attract people on YouTube. Shoot a video on location somewhere right in your neighborhood. Do with something amazing behind you. Those kinds of things also attract people. What's in your background? And again, what is that information you're imparting? And that'll help with raving fans too, by the way. Then the other thing that you want to do on all of these platforms, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook, you want to hashtag it. Hashtag author, anything with author, romance writer, you know, authors of Instagram, that's a popular one. People find you that way. Inspirational author, historical author, autobiography, whatever it is, children's books author. Make sure you hashtag things. And again, if you're listening to me and you're feeling overwhelmed, don't be overwhelmed. Just write down some of the things that I've said, or go back and look at this, because you'll be able to have a chance to go back and do that and listen to the specific things that I challenged you to do, and just pick them apart a little at a time. And that's how you start to grow those raving fans, and they'll stay with you, because we want to be part of a community. If we like what it is that we're hearing or we're seeing or we're reading, we want to be part of that community. Ultimately, in building that fan base and building those raving fans by doing YouTube videos, by doing Instagram posts that are interesting, by doing memes, putting out memes of pieces of your book. I did that, and that was huge for me. People bought my book because of that, because they were curious as to what else was in the book. Whatever it is that you do, string those together. But again, don't overwhelm yourself. Put it out there and see what works. Maybe something really stands out for you. The series of memes I did really worked for me, but I don't do them now. It was something that I did for a short period that worked, and then I put it back on the shelf, and then I'll probably go back to it, because then I'm focusing on YouTube, or now I'm focusing on LinkedIn. But there is power in audio, big power in audio, which is why we're seeing Clubhouse, which is an app that you have to be invited to partake in, but there's lots of authors on Clubhouse. There's lots of people talking about all kinds of things. Audio is super powerful. Video is powerful. The great Gary Vaynerchuk, I had a chance to have a quick conversation with him. If you don't know who he is, look him up, Gary V. He's the master of social media. He's got lots and lots of great resource books out there. And he talks about not being married to one platform, which is exactly what I'm saying. Don't feel like you can't do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Just do it a little at a time. And he talks about the power of audio, because he puts out videos. But as he says, and he's right about this, just like this video, people, once it becomes a video, people will go back and look at it, but they could be multitasking. They could be doing something else, and they're listening to what I'm saying. So the power of audio, like radio, is super, super powerful right now. And you can use audio. You can put audio clips out there and attach it to your book, for goodness sake. Really think of ways that you can billboard your book, or books, or trilogy, or 5 different types of books, whatever it might be. ultimately, earned media is what I said. You look at the headlines, you look at news jacking. What are people talking about? The pandemic's lifting, travel. Maybe you're a travel agent. Maybe you talk about travel in your books, and you have specific places, and that could relate to some stories that are out there, or you could do a blog and talk about that. There's a lot of power in blogging. Some super successful people started blogging. Here's somebody else to look up and follow, Tim Ferriss, if you know who he is. He likes to say that, talk about patience pays, that for years he would write a blog. Every week he would write a blog, he'd put a blog out. Nobody paid attention to it, forever and ever and ever. A few people here and there. He was trying to attract raving fans. It took him years. Now he's wildly successful, New York Times bestseller list. All that wouldn't have happened to him. He had good content, because we're about content creation. All of us are about that, and in sharing that content. But that wouldn't have happened for him if he didn't have that tenacity. Like when somebody asked the question about the rejections, you have to have that tenacity to stay in there, and have to remember that patience pays. Patience paid for him big time, because he kept putting a blog out. No one was reading it for a very long time. Now people kill to be on his podcast and to read whatever it is he suggests. He does a thing that a little newsletter that he puts out on Fridays, and he links to all kinds of people. And he's not the only one. I'll give you another example. Brene Brown. If you look up Brene Brown. She was somebody that for years wrote a book. She was teaching at a university in Texas, and she had a message, and she started to hone her message more. But she wasn't selling books. She had books in the trunk of her car, and she was practically giving them away. And then she clicked on something. She dug a little bit deeper, and she knew as she did her research to talk about shame, because people didn't want to talk about shame, and vulnerability. She discovered the importance of vulnerability, and she has become incredibly successful. If you look her up on YouTube, she has I don't know, I'm going to make up the word, but she has a gazillion, which is a word, hits on her YouTube TED Talk, and what's on YouTube now, but her TED Talk is the thing that really, really exploded her. So how did she get there? Just like Tim Ferriss, she started from the very beginning, from the basics, from being tenacious, from not worrying about the rejection, from continuing to do what she believed in, from honing her skills, from getting that message out there. It's the same thing for all of you. I don't care if you're 80, 50, 30, 20. It can happen at any age. There are no age limitations. The only limitation is the limitation in your mind. Don't let that stop you. Don't let that eat you alive. Again, think of ways to empty that head trash, because if every day people, I know we all get it, empty that trash and write those goals down, and little by little keep doing it. Maybe your goal is, boy, I don't blog right now. I heard Kate say, she challenged me to attract raving fans by writing a blog. Be consistent with it. Be consistent with that blog. Write one every week. Post it on LinkedIn. Post it on Facebook. Post it yourself on blogspot.com and just grow it. I'm going to give you another example. If you go to my YouTube, you'll see Ben and Erin Napier. And I just interviewed them a couple of weeks ago. They have the #1 show on HGTV. It's called Hometown. They're so popular, they've spun off to another show. So they have 2 shows on HGTV right now. And she told me that how they became this big sensation with HGTV. They didn't set out to be on television. They weren't doing that at all. They were from a very rural, small town called Laurel, Mississippi, but she started doing a blog and talking about what she was working on, what she did, and her husband, what he did, and funny little things that happened. And it caught the eye of HGTV, and the rest is history. So there's somebody who was not known, who started to put the blog out, who had some unique spin, going back to the very beginning of what I talked about, your wow. What makes you unique or different? What is your selling proposition? she had one, she talked about it, she wanted to share it with people, and now it has exploded and they've become wildly successful. But I think they are authentic. I know they're authentic. They love what they do, and it's about that. And the more authentic you are and the more you're sharing, again, the more your star will rise, the more you'll attract raving fans, the more you'll get more book sales. If you don't tell people about it, if you don't find other ways to share and get the word out, how are people going to know who you are? How are people going to be interested in your books? ReadersMagnet does a terrific job. This Festival of Storytellers is amazing. And I hope you're getting more than you can even imagine out of being at this festival. And they would tell you the same thing. They'll do an amazing job for you, but you also have to be your advocate. You also have to be out there in the trenches, doing a little bit of work, reaching out to people, writing a blog. Maybe you start, and this would be something down the road for some of you, but maybe you start a podcast. And on the podcast, you interview people just like I do for a living. Maybe you interview people that are other writers. Maybe you start a writer's podcast. Maybe you start a podcast where you talk about the material you're working on and how you get to that point. And maybe you do it, for 20 minutes once a week, and you do a blog. So now you have a blog and a podcast. How much time are you willing to invest to create raving fans? If I always say there's an ocean of time between Monday, we'll take the work week, between Monday and Friday, an ocean of time. Even if you're super, super busy, you can't find time to write a blog, write a couple hundred words, you're a writer. I think you can find the time to do it. And it's wanting to do it. It's having the desire to do it and not stopping yourself or selling yourself short by saying, I'll get to it. I don't know that anybody will look at it. Tim Ferriss, great example. Aaron and Ben Napier, Aaron writing the blogs. Brene Brown, and I just told you about four with the Napiers, 4 super, super successful people in different areas, by the way, right? Now, Tim Ferriss is kind of self-improvement for sure, and so is Brene Brown in a different way. And the Napiers aren't in that genre at all. You could be that next person, who knows? But at least by getting out there and creating that community and creating that sense of, hey, here's who I am, here's what my book or books are about, you'll create more interest in people wanting to buy your book, people wanting to know more about you, wanting to know more about how you came up with the book. I said this before, so if you look at mine, here's my latest one that came out in November. Here's the tip book that you can get for free, that you can download on my in my booth. And here's my other book, Deal Your Own Destiny. And these were books that I had to be out there also attracting raving fans. Even with a platform, you can't get married to the one platform. So I had to be out there in other forms. I had to write a blog. I had to get people interested and excited about what I had to say. So I had to take pieces of my books and do videos. And video content or audio content really, really works. Again, you have to schedule it. You have to make up your mind that you can do it, because if you want to attract, what is it? I'm going to turn it the right way. If you want to attract raving fans, you got to work at it a little bit. It pays. You got to sweat a little bit, as I say, because ultimately it'll pay off for you. It's not magic. It's not going to fly right into your face, right into your aura. It's something that you have to create. You have to take the time. You have to want to do that and decide how much time you can devote to it and focus on those couple of things. Work on earned media. Look at what the headlines are. What could you be talking about? Maybe in your blog, you just attach it to what people are talking about in the world and how it relates to whatever it is that you're writing or thinking about. So I'll give you some other examples. Maybe you can attach yourself to the local community. This is, I just came back from St. Petersburg, Florida. This is one of their magazines that talks about local attractions. And there's actually some writers in here, people who had books. That might happen in your community. Here's another example. There's probably, if it's not a hardcore newspaper, this would be my local one. And there's actually writing contests. There's actually things about authors. There, probably wherever you live, there's something that you could attach yourself to by simply looking around and knowing what it is that people are talking about. Entrepreneur magazine. I mean, look at this. How to control your life. I said this the other day. How to control your life. Now, this is about a famous woman, Bethany Frankel, who made a big name for herself. But how do you control your life? Maybe you can somehow play off Entrepreneur magazine, and maybe you write a blog and you take a picture of Entrepreneur magazine and say, hey, this was pretty provocative. How can you control your life? I talk about self-improvement and self-awareness, and here's ways that you can better your life. Here's ways that you can improve your life. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to hit the chat, because we'll run out of time quickly. And I want to get as much in as I can for you about the initial question, which is what this is all about in attracting raving fans. So I mentioned the 3 kinds of media. It's earned, rented, and owned media. Owned media is getting people in your stadium. In your stadium means, as a very smart man told me who works with Forbes, Rusty Shelton, his name is, he's a master of, I think he's a master of earned, rented, and owned media and talking about it. But the owned media is your website, is your lead page that has your book on it. It's what's yours that's out there. You want people, even if you have them on Twitter, and you start to attract those raving fans on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and maybe LinkedIn and maybe through TikTok, whatever it might be, whatever form of social media, let's say, if we went the social media route, you want to get those people to come to your stadium. Because why? Because they'll see more about your book, right? More about maybe other products you have. Maybe you're creating something online. Maybe there's something else that's related to your book that you have, there in your stadium, on your website. And it could be your website, but it could be someplace else that you lead them. Like I said, usually it's a website or a lead page, but that's where you're taking them to. If you've got, for example, remember there was a thing called MySpace, and MySpace was the precursor to Facebook. And there were a lot of bands, there were a lot of creative people that had really big pages on MySpace and had attracted raving fans. They had attracted 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, crazy amounts of raving fans. But what happened when MySpace went away? What happened to all those fans? Did they convert them? Did they have them on an email list? Do you have a newsletter that you can create and sell? Not sell, that you can send out to people. So website, lead page for a book. Also a newsletter is another great way to do that. So you create your own newsletter and you give people tips in the newsletter. Maybe you have a video in the newsletter, but you don't have to have a video. Maybe it's a blog and it's a place for people to make comments, etc. Maybe that's what you have, and you give them little snippets of different things that relate to your book, perhaps. Maybe you have a quiz there and you give away a book once a month, whatever it is. But you create those fans, again, because they're loyal to you and they want to hear what you have to say in this really interesting newsletter. Maybe your newsletter is like how I do a radio show. We have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, where I do trivia. I do a mic drop moment. I talk about books I'm reading. I talk about where I'm going. And I guarantee if I sat down with every single person watching this, I could pull out your wow, and I could tell you, share this information, figure out what it is that is interesting about you too. And you can do that by asking people. Ask people around you that you know. Hey, what's interesting? What do you find interesting? Do a little survey and figure out what it is that people really want to hear from you. And that newsletter will gain more of those raving fans and give you more traction that will help you stick in the minds of people. So that, guess what? When you have one book and then you go to another book, you'll be able to sell that book too, because people are interested. And you have to also remember, again, patience pays. You have to go all in and figure out what you can do and how much time you can devote, and don't overwhelm yourself. And remember, it takes time, so patience pays. And patience ultimately pays, and it leads to stacking the deck with those raving fans. It's so important to stack the deck with raving fans, even if it's just a strong, mighty bunch in your personal life that lift you up when you're feeling like you can't deal with more rejections. And then it's the people that are out there in the world that find you, see you, etc. The Festival of Storytellers is a great example of that. So many stories that I've heard of now, it's great. All these authors finding each other, all these people that are coming to the festival that are seeing these books that they are so interested in, and they're purchasing the books. All of that goes to that same mindset that, wow, this is interesting, listening to these authors. That's something for me. You can see it. You can see it happening. And this is a great example of attracting raving fans. A brilliant stroke by ReadersMagnet to do that, to get people into the arena, to come, to want to hear, to look, to see what's out there. And people are hungry for that. We're at a space in the world where people are looking to connect. They're looking for things to read, to know, to see, etc. And you may be that person. You might offer up that Tim Ferriss kind of moment, that Brene Brown mindset that just hits you right in the head between the eyes, where you know, oh, that's what I need to overcome, or that's my challenge. Or it just might be something that's entertaining. It doesn't have to be something that's super, super heavy. It can be entertaining. You can send people to different things, different ways you researched a book, or different places that you've gone, etc., and what inspires you, what influences you. And you will grow an audience if you are consistent. One of the things you have to do in attracting raving fans, and it's tough to do, and I know, because I have definitely at points fallen down on this. It's hard to be consistent, particularly when you're a super busy person. But how badly do you want it? You have to ask yourself, how badly do I want to grow this audience? How badly do I want raving fans? How badly do I want people to get my book, to know my book, to see my book? Because I'm empowering them. I'm offering something unique and different. And I want to help people. I want people out there to feel better about themselves, to get more rest, to realize some of the opportunities they have. And again, I'm speaking generically because I know that there are lots of different authors and lots of different books. And also some of you who aren't authors, maybe you're thinking about becoming an author. What is it that you want to write about? What is it that you need to do to find the right title, to find the right genre? Because you may have a couple of different areas that you're thinking about. You can test the waters there on social media. You can put it out. I'm thinking of doing a book on boom. Would this be interesting to you? And you do those surveys. People will answer the call. I've done that. I've done that on titles of books. I've done that even on what a cover of a book looks like. So in closing this, and I can't believe how quickly this flew by, I challenge you to go all in, like I keep saying, to remember patience pays, and to stack the deck with raving fans. Don't overwhelm yourself. Write the lists of people from your life, people that you know that you can reach out to, and reach out to those people from the time you were a kid to the time you're an adult, no matter where you are in your journey. Remember, earned, rented, and owned media. Rented media is great, but you don't want all of your fan base, as you gather it, to just stay there. You want them to go into your space, your own space, meaning your website, your newsletter, to become part of your crew. so important. And that earned media, reach out to media, look at what people are talking about. Don't be afraid to look for reporters. Sign up for Haro, help a reporter, HARO. It's free. Sign up for it. You can get it delivered into your email box every single day. And don't forget your tip book. Stop by my booth and get your free copy of my tip book. You can download it today, and it has much more information on some of the things that I just talked about here. Thanks to Reader's Magnet and Mariana. Terrific.